Everyone good evening and welcome everyone who is joining to this meeting from all over the world. We are pleased to welcome you on this Tamil Rights Activist Forum. And our subject today is the implementation of the right to self-determination under United Nations mechanism. With Global Tamil Movement in partnership with Association Bharati Centre Culturel Franco-Tamil, which is an ECOSOC accredited NGO, we organize Zoom meetings with participation of today our dear Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, who is a United Nations independent expert on the promotion of a democratic and equitable international order. Today we are welcoming six speakers who are representing their people who are fighting for self-determination across the world. So we will have Ms. Summer Ahmed, Rev.Father Jerry Jumbam, Mr. K.S. Radhakrishnan, Ms. Omeima Abdeslam, Ms. Ghada Alrayan, Ms. Mona Ahmed. And before I introduce to one of our speakers, let me please welcome our keynote speaker, who will give his speech at the end of this meeting, and we shall all have his expert advice on the subjects we evoke today. So to introduce, I'm really wondering if we need to introduce Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, who is now among us as a family member, who is really supporting us from within the mechanism UN, in which we are all struggling to find out a way for our people. But nevertheless, I'm doing a short presentation of Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, and I'm also pleased to welcome him on behalf of all of you. So Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana is a United Nations independent expert on the promotion of a democratic and equitable international order. He is the founder and executive director of the Foundation of Human Rights, which is an Ugandan civil society organization. A lawyer by profession and barrister of the High Court of Uganda, he holds a doctorate in public law from the University of Cape Town in South Africa. He holds a master's degree in international human rights law from the University of Essex in the UK, and a Bachelor of Laws from Macquarie University in Uganda. He also holds a postgraduate diploma in law from the Law Development Center in Kampala, as well as certificates of specialized studies from the Institute of Social Studies in the Netherlands and the International Institute of Human Rights in France. Mr. Sewanyana is the recipient of several awards for his academic and professional work, the most recent being the Regional CEO Award, which he had in 2017, the Nakoba Service Award in 2016, European Union Human Rights Defender Award in 2015, Shanti K. Kinduka Award for Social Development in 2013, Africa Human Rights Defender Award in 2013, and Outstanding Young Alumni Award in 2006. He has written and published widely on human rights, corporate governance, public sector management, and access to justice. He is also the author of Comparative Experiences of NGO Regulatory Frameworks, Eastern and Southern Africa in 2017. His doctoral studies and research focused on the regulatory framework of civic associations in Eastern and Southern Africa. So we are very honored and pleased to have Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana once again in our Tamil Rights Activist Forum, which is today, I remind you, the title, The Implementation of the Right to Self-Determination and United Nations Mechanism. Now, without further more delaying, I would like to call on to the first speaker, Ms. Summer Ahmed. Summer Ahmed is a human rights activist from who is joining us from the United States. She is representative of Southern Independent Group for Foreign Affairs in the United States for her people of South Yemen. She's also part of Southern Transitional Council. So on behalf of you, let me welcome Ms. Summer Ahmed, please. And before I forget, I want to remind you that there will be a question and answers section at the end of this event, and I just want to remind to the speakers that you have each 7 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes, but try to be short, and we like to have question and answers to be more interactive. So I just wanted to remind that. So let me just welcome Ms. Summer Ahmed.
Thank you, Nisha. Hello, everyone. Thank you for all coming. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I just want to make sure that you can hear me well. Okay.
Yes, yes.
My name is Summer Ahmed. I am the Southern Transitional Council's Foreign Affairs representative in the United States. I am also a South Yemen independence advocate. Probably many of you know, and some probably don't know, but South Yemen has been fighting for independence since 1994. I'll give us a brief history. On May 22, 1990, North Yemen and South Yemen united to become what's known as Republic of Yemen. That unity didn't go well. Militaries were not merged, and politically, economically, and militarily, everything was not merged, and North Yemen basically reneged on the unity agreement that was signed by South and North Yemen, which led to a civil war in 1994, where South Yemen was invaded by North Yemeni forces, and which the North won during that time. And then Yemen unity was implemented by force in 1994. Since then, the people of South Yemen have been peacefully fighting, advocating for independence. First, initially, there were many protests in South Yemen to correct the Yemen Unity Agreement, to solve the problem in marginalization. The first protests against the injustice and Yemen unity happened in 1998 in Mukalla, Hadramaut, which led to civilians being killed, and a brutal crackdown started since that time, because the power brokers in North Yemen feared that there is a real movement in South Yemen that will demand independence. For that, the government in Sana'a, led by President Ali Abdullah Saleh, started gripping everything in South Yemen, controlled all aspects of the government, economic institutions in South Yemen. So Southerners felt marginalized, excluded, and oppressed. After that, the Southern movement was initiated in 2007. It was a peaceful movement that culminated to defend the South in the new invasion in 2015. Every time there is a conflict or there's a new invasion in South Yemen, usually the culmination of grievances and marginalizations promote and motivate Southerners to come out. I'm sorry about my raspy voice. I'm actually battling a cold, so I apologize for that. In 2015, probably many of you know this, because the war in Yemen has been in every headlines. So in 2015, the Houthis took control of Sana'a, and to solidify their control over Yemen, they also marched south and invaded Aden. There were bloody battles. Aden is basically was basically left destroyed, and there were many civilians that were killed and displaced. The effects of that destruction is still in place today. Institutions are still destroyed, services, electricity, water institutions are still destroyed, and grievances continue to rise, and Southerners continue to demand independence and the right to self determination. I'll answer any questions you have about the Southern cause and where we are today. Again, thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Summer Ahmed, for joining us from the United States and to represent your people of South Yemen. We wish you good luck for your in your fight, and we are here with you also. So thank you for your attention. I hope there will be questions also at the end of this session. So our next speaker is Rev.Father Jerry Jumbam. Here again, I don't know if we really need introduction, as he last time also came here. He's participating with us for all our Zoom meetings for more than now 2 years, and Father Reverend Gerald Jumbam is a fervent activist for the Amazonian people's rights in southern Cameroon and has played a major role in the freedom struggle. His sense of inner freedom allows him to express himself freely and with concision. His huge commitment to the theological enterprise has worried him. His spirits to fashion out a theology for his African people. He calls it theology of self-determination. He has written a book entitled Independence or Nothing. And during the last Zoom session, he has also presented The Pillar of Fire by Night, in which he questioned the UN system and its functions regarding the rights of self-determination of neglected people like us. So let me welcome Reverend Father Jerry Jumbam. Thank you.
Ms. Nisha, thank you for the introduction. I like to begin with a simple story, a story found in one of the most important books that ever existed. One day, some Pharisees came to Jesus, determined to trap him with a complex question. They wanted to know if the Jews should pay taxes to Caesar. Jesus, because he saw how dubious these Pharisees were, answers their question with a question. Whose image is on the coin you use to pay the taxes? That was a simple question because Caesar's image was branded on every coin. Money was Caesar's property. That led to a simple conclusion. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. The Bible readers quote that verse often, but few people pause to meditate on the seriousness of the universal message Jesus passed to his audience. We almost never talk about the last part of the verse, and to God, what is God's? In context, the reference is to the image of Caesar on the Roman coins and the image of God in the human being. So there are two coins in play here. The coin of Caesar, the Roman coin, and the coin of God, the human coin. Jesus is really saying, you are worth more than Caesar's coin. You are worth more than money. You are God's image. So the image planted in God's coin is the human being. Thus, the title of this address, The Coin of God, Right to Self-Determination and the Agony of the British Southern Cameroons. Dear brothers and sisters, your body, your heart, your mind, your soul, your emotions, your will, your dreams, your most profound longings, all of it is grafted in the image of God. That's the ultimate implication of being made in God's image. Herein lies the very fountain and source of the spirit of self-determination. The perception of man as the coin of God prompts me to see self-determination as the universal eligibility to be fully human, the determination to pull down not only unjust walls that dishonor the human being, but also to emancipate chicken-hearted and cowardly mentalities in man. Such yearning ambition to overcome slavish psychoses can be an agony to oppressors, but also can be torment to oppressed slave, still licking the flesh pots of the master. Genuine self-determination fashions out a native attitude of live and let live, be and let be, which finds practical expressions in such global civilizing principles as human dignity, human life, liberation, and the quest for happiness. The United Nations, privileged in their position of leadership of the world, is called to rouse the conscience of the world, summon each one of us global citizens to a great and common purpose, so that millions of afflicted men, women, and children trapped in the prison of oppression can at least be set free. For my country, Amazonia, the United Nations has always constituted a prism through which we view our situation in the world and how we wish our practices to be perceived and judged. The mischievous Cameroon Republic military men that leave the comforts of Beitoa, Bafia, Kuseri, Bangante, Bululand to wander through the aboriginal grassland highlands of Bamenda or the forest zones of Indian are extremely serious. They have to be. They have come to change my world. The builders of the biblical Tower of Babel, the one and indivisible Cameroon, who want to turn me into a La République du Cameroon's third-class citizen. They know the importance of being serious. They have that quality of mind that Adolf Hitler's Gestapo before then understood so well, seriousness. Now it seems to me pretty obvious that if I wish to achieve independence, to change the identity fabricated for me by these serious agents of modern African colonialism, I will need to borrow some of their willpower, some of their seriousness. Obvious to do it by lazing away in internal strife, baseless backbiting, and a vicious factionalism. One of such areas the Southern Cameroon's leadership is called to exercise the virtue of seriousness is in uniting its people, in galvanizing its human potential for a renewed engagement into the business of self-determination and total independence. I am proud son of a spiritual institution that in its royalty enjoys a sovereign status among the nations of the world, the Vatican. This country, this institution, the Vatican, took hold of its sovereignty through an embattled application of the principle of self-determination. The Lateran Treaty of 1929 was the sovereign accomplishment that gave the Vatican full powers to stand by itself away from the maneuvers of the fascist tyrant Mussolini. So when I speak about the independence of Amazonia, the Southern Cameroons, my homeland, I am earnest about everything I do, supported by concrete, tangible testimony from my religious and spiritual backyard. Priest I am, yet with a deep sense from personal influence of the centrality of national identity and a sense of belonging, and how when deprived, man and woman quickly sinks into human hopelessness. Such despondency cannot be ignored, nor suppressed, nor circumvented, and shouldn't anymore be ignored in the case of the Amazonians scattered here and there, waiting for a free land where they could rule themselves and exploit their resources for the building of a future for their children. That is why some of us have gone public to uncover these afflictions and seek the hand of institutions like the UN in the addressing of such historic and contemporary cruelties meted out on whole peoples. Accurately, we can say that the UNO is the charge conceived in the brilliant minds of two wartime remarkable and first at the 20th century statesmen, Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Winston Churchill. It was in 1941 the Atlantic Charter was born. In full battle, yet already envisioning a post-war world, these two statesmen, actively seeking to avoid the mistakes made after the First World War, recognized that all peoples, under whatever form of tyranny, should be liberated. So the very foundations of the UNO were the determination to liberate oppressed peoples all over the world. In that defining Atlantic Charter, there were 8 principal points among them. The third was that of self-determination, which had the following eloquent words: that they respect the right of all peoples to choose the form of government under which they will live, and they wish to see sovereign rights and self-government restored to those who have been forcibly deprived of them. Ladies and gentlemen, I finish by saying that when under the cloud of colonial emasculation, African states under colonial tyranny dared to imagine a free and peaceful future for their children in the light sparkled by the flames of hope of the Atlantic Charter. That was the hope that the British Southern Cameroons shared right back in the 40s and the 50s with other burgeoning African states. But when Nigeria and Ghana, when Kenya and Tanzania, and when La République du Cameroun even were granted their full independence, the British Southern Cameroons, which had full rights as trusteeship UN territory, was left in the dark, deprived of his right to self-government. It is this disadvantaged position in the post-Second World War international politics that has enabled the Holocaust that is taking place today in the West African state of the British Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia. The Ambazonian man and woman are fired up in this generation to right those wrongs and get back their stolen birthright, full and total independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Jerry Jumbam, for your beautiful intervention. With your inner sense of freedom, you beautifully explained how far your people are struggling to fight for their self-determination. So thanks a lot for your intervention of today. You remind also the people that you can have questions to our speakers at the end by raising your hand. So let's move to the next speaker now. On behalf of GTM, we are also very pleased to welcome today K.S. Radhakrishnan, who is joining us from Thamizhnaadu in India. So let me introduce him to you. K.S. Radhakrishnan is a political analyst, a legal expert, a human rights and environmental activist. He's a writer and columnist hailing from Thamizhnaadu in India. He has been actively involved in Tamil Nadu politics for almost 5 decades now. 25 years ago, he was nominated as the first spokesperson of a regional political party in Tamil Nadu. He has worked closely with great leaders like Kamarajar, Kalaignar, Karnataka former chief minister, poet like Kannadasan, Pala Nedumaran, farm folk leader C. Narayana Swami Naidu, and also Sri Lankan GULF leader A. Amrithalingam and others. He also participated in Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly elections in the year 89 and 96 in Kovilpatti. It's important to underline here that Honorable Prabhakaran, the leader of LGTE in his early days, stayed along with him and have huge respect for him. As a member of many organizations, he has extended his service to satisfaction for all stakeholders. He was a member of Central Advisory Board on Child Labour and Workers' Education Board, both under Ministry of Labour and under Ministry of Railways. He is a life member of Alliance Françoise de Madras and Common Cause, which is a public interest litigation forum in New Delhi. He's also actively associated with international organizations like Amnesty International, national and regional agencies of human rights and democracy. He has undertaken various studies and research on the status of civil liberties, child labor, prostitution, and other social issues. He is a warrior against the death penalty and appeared as a counsel for the convicts. He writes extensively on human rights in the media and published several books on this subject. His extensive study about environmental issues in the Western Ghats is commendable. He is a writer and literature and a notable personality in the media and publishing circles. He has written many books in English and Tamil. Some of the important titles are, for example, Urimaikku Kural Kodupom on political and economical and human rights issues, or else Manitha Urimaikal Endral Enna, which is a primer on human rights. So, with this long introduction, let me welcome, welcome Mr. K.S. Radhakrishnan from Thamizhnaadu, India. Welcome.
Dear fellow friends, greetings and vanakkam from Thamizhnaadu. I am here to talk about Sri Lanka Tamil ethnic cause. What happened there? After independence 1948, there are two ethnical race in Sri Lanka. One traditional Tamil race, northeast. Another race in South Singalas. After independence 1948, both are joined from the government in Sri Lanka. There are a lot of discussion, more than 9 agreements between Sinhala government and Tamil leaders. That agreement may only for implement for Tamil's rights and equal rights. But that agreements were not implemented by Sri Lankan government. But in other country, they are not agreed to provide whatever the facilities for Tamil cause there, for employment, for Tamil's education institution, everything they are second-rank citizens in Sri Lanka. They fought for 20 years Satyagraha, non-violence movement like our Mahatma Gandhi. Then Tamil leader Selvanayagam decided to, in future, we have to take some decision. So they met in Vattukottai. They passed a resolution in the sense we want a separate land, separate country for Tamil ethnic cause. That is Vattukottai resolution, the historical resolution in 76. That way, that is a referendum. They put in the people, Tamil mass. That is a separate identity, separate land for their own country. For that, they met parliament election. The 18 members were elected as per promises given the resolution of Vattukottai, separate land. After that, you very well know all these human rights champions are here. What happened in Sri Lanka? 70s, 81, 83, there is a genocide. Our former Prime Minister, late Indira Gandhi, in Parliament, Indian Parliament, stated that there is a well-designed genocide happened against the Tamils in that island by Singhala's government. The Tamils are traditionally, they are living there. Historically, they are that from that land. Now, what is the situation there? 9 agreements between the Sinhalese government and Tamils not implemented. Even after, Mulli Vaikal incident, LLRC, there is a committee, there is a commission. That recommendation is not yielded by Sinhalese government, not implemented after they given a lot of promises in UNHRC Geneva, not implemented so far. Now, what is the status of that area? They are living in Tamils in northeast. You know, there is military, completely army. There is no war, no threat, no terrorism, but army is camped all this northeastern area, creating fear among Tamils. So we are telling you withdraw the army from there. Almost Mullivaikal is over. Now they are peaceful. So why these are wandering here in that army? That's the first thing. Second thing, during Mullivaikal, lot of people, Tamils, were arrested. What is their status? What about their release? So far, no reply from single government. Lot of people are disappeared. Third point, lot of people are disappeared. So many times they put a demand to find out the disappeared people whereabouts. No reply from single government. Then, you know, the pending resolution is from 2012 from UNHRC. No result, no effect. You know, our close friend Bosco is there. He's making all efforts, but no outcome so far. The international community should be support that UNHRC, even Indian government. We are some people are advocating for this from Tamizhnaadu. Likewise, we want a separate referendum with the supervision of international agencies. What is the aim? What is Sri Lankan Tamils needed for the political settlement? There should be a referendum. There are so many precedents are there. You know, South Sudan, Czechoslovakia, even after, you know, Soviet Russia, so many countries were disintegrated, their own separate nationality. That is why thus this is a fit case for self-determination to decide their own right. That was given by United Nations universal right. That's a theory. There's a natural justice. They have to provide that self-determination is must for Sri Lankan cause. Still they are fighting from 1948. Now what is the 2022? Nothing happened. Still Sri Lankan Tamils are second-rank citizens in that island. Nothing happened. So many negotiations, so many agitations. You know, like Mahatma Gandhi, Selvanayagam took non-violence agitation. So many things, so many problems, so many issues, so many things. So after that, youngsters took weapons. They fight for their cause, like Yasser Arafat, that Palestinian like issue. Now, what is there? Now the resolution pending UNHRC. We want a good result from UNHRC. We are expecting, as per basis of self-determination, it is a fit case, right case. In the international level, lot of precedents are there. Likewise, Sri Lanka, Ethnikas, where there is already, they are affected a lot. Thus, it's a fit case for self-determination as per UN covenant. Therefore, we are supporting Sri Lankan Tamils for their cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Radhakrishnan, for your beautiful intervention, reminding the struggles of the Ilam Tamil people. You made a brief historical outlook on our situation starting from 81, 83, and you also touched a word on Indira Gandhi, who recognized it was a genocide, and even after her, genocide still continues for Ilam Tamils in Sri Lanka and outside Sri Lanka, as they are trying to oppress us even in a mental way. And you also pointed out the failures of the international systems like UNHCR And you also pointed out the Sri Lankan government's brutality and the impunity in which they are governing over the Sri Lankan Tamils who are considered as second-class citizens, as you very well exposed. So thank you very much for this comprehensive analysis from your part. And I remind also the people who wish to ask questions to our speaker, you can also raise your hand at the end to ask him questions at the end. So thanks again, Mr. Radhakrishnan, for your participation. Our next speaker is a very beautiful lady. I call her the Iron Lady, and she knows I love her. I always have a great admiration for her each time I see her in the Human Rights Council. Miss Omeima Abdeslam. She's a very, how to say, an example for people like me, for women like me. I always tell people, you know, come and see and come and meet Omeima in the UN, and you'll see that women can do even better than behind, inside inside your house. We can change world if we unite together. So the example I give is Omeima. Omeima Abdeslam was born on the Atlantic coast of Western Sahara in 1973, the same year as independence movement, the Polisario Front, created to fight against the Spanish occupation of the time. 2 years later, Morocco annexed this area as large as half of France, anticipating the departure in 1976 of the Madrid authorities. The war breaks out, and the family of Omeima Abdeslam, an anti-colonialist, fled in 1978 to a refugee camp in southern Algeria near Tindouf. In 1991, a ceasefire was signed under the aegis of the UN. This agreement provides for a self-determination referendum which never took place, and Omeima is fighting to get this referendum and also to get this self-determination for her people. And I invite Omeima to speak about that in her words. Welcome, Omeima.
Thank you so much, Krishna. I am very honored to your words and to your admiration. Me too. I am admiring the Tamil people by your perseverance. And I want to thank Global Tamil people for inviting me to this conference. And I want to thank Mr. Livingstone for being with us here and other nations to hear about our history. We really appreciate your dedication and your time. As you perfectly said, I am coming from Western Sahara. It's a non-self-governing territory. It's listed in the UN. We are in the 4th committee. We are in the agenda of the Security Council. We are everywhere, but unfortunately, the UN has failed to the aspirations of the Sahrawi people to achieve independence. The fact that we are in the list of non-self-governing territories, we are entitled to be independent and free, like the other countries who were in Africa. Actually, Western Sahara is known as the last colony in Africa. We have done everything for this independence. We have launched a war of 16 years. We have created our own state, which is a full member of African Union. It is the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, which is recognized by 84 countries. Unfortunately, this state is not a member of the UN. We have organized ourselves, and we have become the second country in Africa that has really eradicated analphabetism. We are very well organized. The position of the woman is very powerful. We are a very progressist country. The women in my country, that they doesn't know what it is, the violence against women. When the woman, she's divorced, we make her a party. The women who are divorced are more like courteside than the ones who are unmarried. And the women are very visible in their houses and also in the society. For example, just to give you an example, the 90% of the health system is led by women, and 80% of the education system is led by women. So we are the perfect country, but with the huge problems. And I want to tell Mr. Livingstone and all of you that all the problems that we have as Africans or as nations who are aspiring to have our free nations. The problem is that this problems has been imposed to us by Western countries. In our case, it was Spain, it's France who's preventing, it's USA who's preventing. And in your case of Tamil, for example, is I don't know who has created all this mess, but I think it's the UK. If I'm not, correct me, please, Nisha. It's UK and it's Sri Lanka government somehow, but UK is the one who has really created a big problem. Yeah. So the question of Western Sahara, it's a huge problem that is in the agenda of the UN, but unfortunately, the UN, the Security Council, instead of being part of the solution, has become part of the problem. Let me explain you. So the Security Council has been created to create peace and security, to avoid wars, to avoid everything. We are in the agenda of the Security Council. Every time that the question of Western Sahara is discussed, there is these 5 countries who are UK, Russia, USA, France, and the other one I can't remember who is, but these 5 countries are monopolizing the question of Western Sahara, and they are putting it in stock. Let's call it like this. They stock the question of Western Sahara, and they prevent any kind of solution. So there is no political will from the UN to solve this conflict. So these countries who are supposed to be the one who are going to solve this conflict has become part of the conflict, and they are not solving anything. So we find ourselves as Sahrawis as hostage of the UN itself, because the UN is helping the occupiers to occupy our land and to settle in our land. The first one who are helping them are the Europeans by signing agreement of fisheries, which includes our lands and our waters and our resources. So this is a very sad situation, and I want to, from this possibility that I have to speak, to denounce the right of the veto, because the veto that these 5 countries has in their hands has become a problem for everybody, not only for Western Sahara, for everybody. Every time that the nations are trying to solve a conflict, there is someone who raised the hand of the veto. By the way, it's something that is obsolete. It's a solution that has been created 15 years ago, while the Second World War has finished. But now we are in other kind of democracy, so we have to develop ourselves and to put ourselves to the demand. Second question: who has said that there must be only 193 countries? Who has said that? Where is this law that has come and says that it can be, I don't know, maybe 1,000 countries who have a seat in the UN? Why we feel so excluded as nations? For example, when we see Madame Bachelet in the office of the High Commissioner and others saying, we don't leave no one behind. Madame Bachelet, we are left behind. The Ambazonians are left behind. The Tamils are left behind. The Yemenis are left behind. Everybody except the Western world is left behind. So please don't insult our intelligence and step away from the African people, from the other peoples, to let them enjoy their freedom and their right to be independent. And I want to thank you really, Mr. Livingstone, for being with us. And I want to advise the nations who are here to take the responsibility in their hand, educate yourself, organize yourself, and do everything you can do to empower your people. This is the only solution to bring peace and stability. From my point of view, myself, I am a peaceful advisor, or making advocacy for peace. But I had to make myself side away when the UN has failed us for 30 years in a peace process that has never led to any solution in our case. So now we have begun another war that has begun the 13th of November 2020, and it's continuing until today to liberate our lands. We have took the initiative now because the UN has failed to our aspirations. Thank you very much, and I really wish you all the best, and I am here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Omeima, for your intervention, which is always, it's always good to hear you, your analysis, but also your advice, because you're a great inspiration also for other people who are, who can remark the failures of the system, and at the same time we are blocked. And as you said in your intervention, we have to unite together, organize together to empower people facing the UN, which is in fact a failed system. So we wish you good luck also in your struggle, in your way to find a solution. Whether it is doing advocacy for peace, or whether doing fight against the oppressor. So thank you very much for being here for us, and you can be assured that we are also here with you in your fight. Thank you, Ms. Omeima. Our next speaker is Ms. Ghada Alrayan. Ghada Alrayan is the consultant and researcher by law for Palestine. She's born in a refugee camp from parents who have fled genocide. She holds a diploma in economics and law and currently works in an international financial institution, working at the UN since She's working at the UN since 2016 with several NGOs that allows her to gain practical experience in legal research. So we are very pleased to welcome Ms. Ghada Alrayan on our Human Rights Activist Forum today. Welcome, Ms. Ghada Alrayan.
Thank you so much, and thank you also for the invitation, and also for the organizers who gave us the opportunity to be today with you. So as explained by the speakers, the main reason behind the appearance and emergence of the right to self-determination was colonization and illegal control of the lands of other countries, which led people to the people of these countries to demand for elimination and call for freedom. The Palestinians are also among the nations who are still under occupation in the modern era, and all the rights are still violated because of the Zionist movement seizure of their lands. It's also a result of the displacement of their residents and the establishment of the State of Israel. Therefore, it was imperative for the Palestinian people to obtain all their legitimate rights guaranteed by international law, and especially the right to self-determination. So if we go one step back and talk about the recognition of the Palestinian right of self-determination, well, the countries of the UN General Assembly Third Committee, which deals basically in the humanitarian affairs and social matters, voted in favor of the resolution on the right of the Palestinian to self-determination. 170 countries voted in favor of the resolution and 7 voted against. So it was a clear sign that they recognized the Palestinian right to self-determination. So the resolution reaffirms the right of the Palestinian to self-determination in their independent state of Palestine, and argues all states, specialized agencies, and also the United Nations bodies to continue supporting the Palestinian until they achieve the rights to self-determination. The General Assembly gave a legal interpretation of the Charter with regard to the right to self-determination, and this is the basis for the right to independence and sovereignty, and other rights are branched like all from it. The interpretation acquired the character of binding rules in international law, and the history of the United Nations General Assembly is closely linked to the principle of the right to self-determination and its interpretation when it began to consider the question of Palestine in 1948. So the report of the United Nations Special Committee on Palestine stated, for instance, the principle of self-determination, despite the fact that it was adhered to in other Arab regions, but this principle was not applied to Palestine. And this is clearly due to the intention to facilitate the establishment of the State of Israel. Despite this opinion, the committee itself did not give any importance to this principle and did not agree on its application for the Palestinian. It was divided into a majority that recommended the partition of Palestine and a minority that recommended the establishment of a united independent Palestinian state with guarantees for the rights to the minority residents. But the General Assembly again, and under the pressure from the US and its allies, issued its second session, the resolution number 181 in 1947 to divide Palestine. Thus, and for 20 years, the General Assembly has viewed the issue of the Palestinian people and their rights as a refugee problem, and for the first time, the concept of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people appeared in the General Assembly Resolution number 2535 of 1969, in which it was stated that the General Assembly reaffirms the inalienable rights of the people of Palestine. So the Palestinians have the natural and undisputed right to own the lands on which they have lived since ancient times, like other nations, and they clearly have the right to establish a Palestinian state and also the right to self-determination. Therefore, they have the right to enjoy all the rights that are granted to them, which are also recognized by the international community with all its bodies and organizations. So we should be able to enjoy a peaceful life in a security on our territory and our government. And as a result, we are allowed to obtain this right by any means of obtaining or exercising it. Usually, and like the oppressed people have the right to free themselves from the shackles of control, and obviously to resort to all means in order to achieve their national liberation. So the continuation of armed struggle in general constitutes a threat to international peace and security. Therefore, finding peaceful solutions is at the core of the competence of the United Nations and regional organizations. But in order to end ethnic conflicts in line with Article 55 of the UN Charter, the report of the Commission of the International Law Experts on the issue of the violence that accompanies the demand for self-determination states that it's often not the assertion of the right to self-determination by oppressed people that leads to violence, but rather the rejection of the state authorities that leads to the outbreak of armed conflict. I would like to conclude as it was very beautiful said by Omeima, it won't be possible to protect our nations and our right to self-determination in the absence of the political will, especially that the nations or the countries that are supposed to protect our rights by the UN, who are the same countries who violated our rights and who protected the occupiers and gave them like all the power to leave them complete with their occupations on our lands. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Ghada Alrayan, for your beautiful intervention and your very concise analysis of your struggle and the failures of UN, but also the failure of the governments who are united there and who are trying to solve our problem, but within their limits. So you beautifully expressed how they are continuously trying to ignore us. So, and how we can find a solution. And I also remind people that the question of Palestinian people is discussed under item 7 thrice a year. So it's always good to see what's happening there, because Palestinian cause, it's something on which we can rely and on which we can take example on our freedom fight also. Thank you, Ms. Ghada Alrayan. I hope to see you next time in better conditions and not via Zoom. So hope to see you soon. Our last speaker is Mona Ahmed, who is living in exile in. So I don't have the country. I just have a dash here. So
I live in Paris, actually.
Okay, so you're. Welcome, bienvenue, Mona Ahmed.
Thank you.
In exile in Paris, in France. She's representative of Southern Independent Group representative. So she is come here to speak about the fate of her people, the Southern Yemenis, and she's going to present to you her views on this issue. Bienvenue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Mona Ahmed, human rights activist, SIJ representative, South Yemen. Of course, thank you for the invitation. And we prepared actually a summary of stages of emergence of the Southern issue. I hope that I will have, it will be quick, so I will read for you. Yemeni Unification took place on May 22nd, 1990, when the area of the People Democratic Republic of Yemen, also known as South Yemen, was united with the Yemen Arab Republic, also known as North Yemen, forming the Republic of Yemen known as simply Yemen today. After 2 years of unity, it became clear to the southern people that the regime in the north did not have a good intention with the unity project. Between 1990 and 1994, there was an assassination campaign of southern leadership. 140 plus leading figures were killed. In April 1994, the northern regime announced the war against the south, where the president of Yemen said in speech, "No choice for southern leaders in Aden except escaping through the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea." A coalition of northern allies, tribes, extremists, and the regime began to take hold of the country, marginalizing southerners. Tens of thousands of southerners are forced out of military and civilian positions. No attempts were made by the northern lead and influence regime to remedy southern grievances after the war. Widespread corruption on a huge scale, including the awarding of vast areas of land and rights to natural resources in the south, to the northern tribal sheikhs, military figures, and religious extremist leaders. Feeling oppressed and with the rightful demands ignored, Southerns began the Southern Peaceful Movement, which began on the 7th July 2007. The movement was met with the force and over 3,000 activists were killed and thousands injured, detained or fled the country for safety. In 2011, a movement took place in the north against the corruption of Ali Saleh regime, and he was thrown out. But it was not a successful movement, as the Muslim Brotherhood and the Houthi militia took control of the land and the situation. In September 2014, the Houthi militia, in cooperation with the former regime of Ali Saleh, staged a military coup and took control of the capital Sana'a of the Republic Yemen. I'm sorry. The government leaders fled abroad and to areas in the south. Sorry, is my voice clear? Because I got something interrupting, sorry.
It is clear, you can.
Thank you. In April 2015, the south has been re-invaded by the north, once again by the army of the former president and Iranian-backed Houthi militia. The ongoing war reinforces the northern desire to ensure that the south remains occupied, and all northern warring parties, despite being in conflict, maintain a unified position to deny southerners the right to self-determination. Aden and many southern cities were bombarded with devastating consequences, and Southerns continue to suffer today for the aftermath. After 4 months of Southern resistance, backed by the Arab coalition, the Southern resistance liberated Aden and the surrounded areas, and resistance continued until the rest of the areas were liberated. And that remains the case till today. 2 years after the southern resistance ousted the Houthi rebels and Saleh forces, nothing has been made by the Hadi government to improve the lives of people in the south. Not even the most basic of services provided. The government of Hadi had failed to show Southerners that they can be respected and treated differently from the previous governments. The Southern Transitional Council, STC, was founded in 2017 with the aim of leading the territory of the former PDRY to independence. The Southern Transitional Council was founded to represent the interest of the South and to provide its political leadership. The fact that the STC is currently the dominant organization in the Southern movement is largely due to the support of the majority of the population in the South. As a result of political tensions within the Hadi government, army forces of the Hadi government, supported by tribes and extremists, attacked Shabwa in 2018 and set their foot there. Most of these forces came from the north. At the beginning of 2019, they were trying to attack Aden, but they failed. Since these forces set foot in the Shabwa local government in August of 2019, this group has committed the most terrible crimes against humanity, including violation, killing, kidnapping, and arbitrary arrest outside the framework of law against the people of the governorate who rejected the militia's presence in it. In September 2021, the Houthi militia intensified their military operations against Shabwa districts. The army force of the Hadi government surrounded Shabwa to Houthi militia without any resistance. In January 2022, Southern military forces backed by the STC pushed into the Houthi-controlled areas and liberated Shabwa districts. In an interview with the Arab News, Al-Hadath, STC President Aidarus Al-Zubaydi said that the nature of future state in South Yemen will be determined by the southern people through a referendum. He added that the STC's project is clear and we have the right to announce it anytime we see fit. I'm sorry, I'm just having interruption calls here. I'm so sorry. He said that we are seeking self-determination as the support for self-determination by the United Nations remains pride of all humans. He mentioned that STC vision revolves around 3 options on the table that will be subject to referendum, determined by the Southern people. The first option is to return to the before 1990, while the second one is federal state. The third option is the survival of unity. Finally, it is clear that regional stakeholders have come to the conclusion that stability in southern Yemen has become an urgent necessity. But there is no clear point of view in the international community regarding the future of South Yemen, as they may have different interests. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mona Ahmed, joining from France. You have beautifully exposed to us your situation, the situation of the southern Yemen people. It's always good to hear from first your stories, because we are all fighting, we're all sailing in the same boat, but sometimes we don't know much the struggle of others. So it is very well explained and very historically constructed. So thank you very much. We see that you are still in struggle, and even now, 1 month ago, your fight is still on the fire, let's say. So thank you for this clear vision and analysis of your historical and political struggle to find a solution, which is a referendum, and finally to a self-determination that you're asking like us. So friends, we have come to the end of the speaker's intervention. So I now I'm inviting our keynote speaker of the event, Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, the United Nations independent expert on the promotion of a democratic and equitable international order, to give his analysis of all the interventions and to tell us what is possible within the framework of the UN. And also, I also remind people who wish to question our speakers, you can, and also Mr. Livingstone, that you can raise hands at the end to ask your questions. So now, without further delay, let's welcome Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana for his keynote speech. Welcome, Mr. Livingstone.
Hello, hear me? Hello?
Yes, we do. We hear you, Mr. Livingstone.
You hear me well. Thank you. Hello?
Yes, Mr. Livingstone, we can hear you. Can't see you, but we can.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Once again, I'm delighted to have been given this opportunity to make a contribution to this very important subject and struggle on self-determination. I want to thank the moderator and the conveners for this wonderful job that you are doing, creating awareness and ensuring a continuous or continuing public discourse on this very important issue. As we have agreed in the past, it's no longer in dispute that the right to self-determination is an inalienable right, particularly to all those communities or persons who are facing oppression. And once we have proved that there is oppression and abuse of fundamental rights of the people, and there seems to be a continuing pattern, then a case has been made for those people to exercise their right self-determination. States, however, are very quick to make an argument that those seeking for self-determination are trying to undermine their territorial integrity. And as such, they don't deserve the enjoyment of that right. I want to submit that the right self-determination, as has been discussed on many occasions, is an issue of rights, it's an issue of devolution of power, and also is a public outcry for self-governance. Indeed, many communities have justified their search for the right self-determination. Listening to many speakers, as I've done before, from South Cameroon, Palestine, Western Sahara, Yemen, and of course, Sri Lanka, there is no doubt that the struggle must continue. And we need to constantly create awareness among the public about the necessity to assert that right. Indeed, for many communities, as you have rightly put it, there have been a lot of resolutions upon resolutions from the UN Human Rights Council as well as the UN General Assembly, in some cases making a justifiable argument for those particular areas to acquire the right self-determination. The biggest challenge, however, at the moment is no longer the question as to whether they are entitled to the right self-determination or whether states are aware of the necessity of the people of South Cameroon, Palestine, Western Sahara, Yemen or Sri Lanka, among the Tamils, to exercise their right. The challenge right now is how do we go about it? In the most recent webinar, I think we spoke about this issue. And as you recall, my predecessor, Professor Alfred Desire, said it's no longer an issue of whether the communities in question deserve the right, but it's now an issue of implementation and, of course, creating a mechanism through which there is solutions and, of course, the search for identity can be realized. He pointed out, if you recall, the necessity for us to build political pressure. And as I heard rightly from the speaker from Palestine, and I think Western Sahara, it's now an issue of political will. How do we ensure that states commit themselves to implementing these resolutions, which have been passed over and over? How do we ensure that the question of self-determination remains high on the radar for member states to constantly engage themselves with? How do we ensure that the UN Security Council sees this issue of the right to self-determination as an issue of peace and security for the world? How do we ensure that increasingly within the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals, the question of leaving no one behind also includes those people, whether minorities, who constantly are facing oppression and deserve the right to coexist or self-existence? So it's now an issue and a question of how. But as he put it rightly, we need to build political pressure. Political will has become increasingly necessary to ensure that these resolutions are actually upheld and implemented. And of course, when we engage in this public discourse, as we constantly enlighten ourselves and bring more people on board, we are certainly making the issue more and more relevant every day. Because we shouldn't leave those who oppress us or who oppress these people to imagine even one single moment that they can continue unchecked. In some states, definitely there has been a call for a referendum, like in the case of the Tamils. There is need for a referendum for them to determine their destiny. Question is, who is going to push for that referendum? I think we have agreed in the past that it may be necessary for us to push the UN to push for that referendum. But certainly some of the states, particularly the big states, do not have the political will. They don't have that interest to ensure that the rights that we are searching for self-determination are accorded to these communities. So apart from sensitizing ourselves, sensitizing the international community, creating awareness of the issue and making sure that it's high on the radar, this is a matter I have pledged before that I would like to revisit. As you recall, my predecessor, Alfred Zayas, did make a report on the right self-determination of, and since then, it has not been revisited. I have discussed this within the UN system, and I intend to to ensure that before my term ends, I have dedicated myself to a report that exclusively discusses this issue. I had, for example, before thought that I would actually devote the forthcoming report to this matter, but the prevalence of COVID-19 has made it quite difficult because the resolution of both the UN Human Rights Council and the General Assembly, both in 2000 and in 2020 and 2021, required me to address the question of COVID-19 and measures that the world community must take in order to ensure equitable access to the vaccine, but at the same time to promote multilateral cooperation on the matter. That I have done. Now, through this discourse, I'm interested in picking this issue further, and hopefully we can build the necessary momentum for me to take up this matter. Recently, when we had our annual mandate holders meeting in Geneva, we dedicated a session to the Tamils, Sri Lanka, and the matter was discussed because
He seems to have some
brought up. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Are you still hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. So as I have said, I intend to ensure that one of the reports that I will be authoring soon addresses the question of self-determination for the different communities that I have engaged. So apart from engaging my fellow special rapporteurs and independent experts, I would like to devote one of the reports to the question of self-determination. I would like to revisit the subject. I would like to bring up this issue once more to the Secretary General of the UN to make sure that the matter is not forgotten, that the matter needs to be revived. Because within the framework of the SDGs, the communities that are searching for identity and of course self-expression, as well as the right of self-governance, need not to be left behind. So we have now gathered increasingly in the UN is the necessity to build political pressure. Of course, we also need to ensure that the media is not left out. The media needs to be mobilized to constantly raise this issue so that it is picked up and becomes an ongoing concern. Definitely, there is a lot of discourse around Palestine, around Western Sahara, and around Sri Lanka, but you don't hear the same on the question of Cameroon or Yemen. There is very limited discussion around that. So I hope that when I author the next report on this question, I will trigger further international attention on the matter. But rightly, I want to commend you for this ongoing discussion. I want to commend you for the interest. I want to commend you for the interest, and I want to say, never give up. The struggle has to continue. Within the UN, I have said over and over, both the Human Rights Council and the General
Dr. Livingstone, we have lost your connection. Can you hear us? He seems to have some problem with the network. We hope to hear him again. Meanwhile, I'm just reminding you that you can ask questions to our speakers and also to Mr. Livingstone. Are you here, Dr. Livingston? It seems that we have lost his connection. So, awaiting his, he joins to our meeting. We can maybe have some questions. I can already see 3 hands who are asking for me to allow them to read their questions. So I'm just waiting to see if Mr. Livingston is still with us. I don't think so. Okay, so maybe we can move to the question and answers time. I see Mr. Julius NDE raising his hand. You can ask your questions, but please be short as we have many people who may want to ask questions also, and we also want to welcome back, if we can, Mr. Livingston, who will end his speech that he beautifully started. So be brief with your questions so that the people can answer also in a very short form, because we are running out of time. So Julius NDE, the floor is yours for your question. Mr. Julius NDE, yes, I think you have the mic.
Yes, thank you, participant, for the presentation. I would like to recommend everybody who participate on the different presentation across the different countries. I have 3 questions. One will be from Rev.Father Jumbam from the Southern Cameroons, issue advocate. And the second will be from one of the advocates from the South, the Southern from the Sahara, and then the other one is from Mr. Livingston. First of all, straight away, I thank Father Jumbam for his quite remark and advocate on this. The question I have to ask direct on the Father Jumbam is, according to the self-determination question, and at the moment, the United Nations and the rest of the world, the interests of the colonial powers that continue to hang the question of self-determination or prevent is first before the question of people to have the right to govern their own states. More specifically, the question, the interest of America, the interest of France, question of UK, the interest of maybe and others, Russian or China, is at first before the interest of those people who are suffering from colonial liberation. That is at stake. At any point, their interest is first before any time. How could we address this in order to get the people have their right and get their state governed? Second point of question, there is also another conflict of interest in addressing. That is the question. I'm not talking this to, maybe Father Jumbam can also answer, but also the lady from Sarajevo can also answer this. The second question is, there is a side that those fighting for freedom to their states are divided, and therefore it's a precondition to determine whether they have the right to independence. I want to remark that at independence of many African countries and the other countries in 1960, there was not the question of whether you are divided before you have the right to govern your state or your right to independence. It was the question that we want our states first, then those people would put themselves together and govern. Why should the colonizers, the people putting you this problem, telling you that they have to decide whether you are united or this before they give you independence? That is, should we wait on such answers from the same colonizers to decide if we want to have the right to our states? No. Then the third question to Mr. Livingston, who is the rapporteur to the United Nations. I would like also to recommend him that he has advocated for that he is going to present the issues to the UN and or to the Secretary General. But I think that does he not think there's more to engaging the parties of the conflict are direct to the United Nations rather than he presenting a rapport for the issue to be taken seriously? The conflict of the other powers or interests is at stake rather than those. Will it not be appropriate that those stakeholders, such as some of the advocates here, should directly speak in a forum with the UN partners and other countries directly in order to get these matters straight in their minds, rather than also going through a kind of a report that somebody sends in his words, looking it from a surface level. Thank you.
So before giving place to the speakers, the question was to Rev.Father Jumbam, and then to Omeima, and then to Dr. Livingstone. Let me please welcome back again our keynote speaker, Dr. Livingstone, who has rejoined us. I think he's within us now. So let him finish his speech, and then maybe answer the third question, and then we'll go to Father Jumbam and Omeima for the answers. Mr. Livingstone, are you there?
Hello, moderator. Do you still hear me?
Yes, Dr. Livingstone, we can hear you.
Yeah, looks like I got lost and you did not hear my last comments. But in any case, my position is this. The whole question of self-determination is an issue of political will. We definitely need to build political pressure. Of course, the challenge is that CSOs, by their very nature, have very limited audience before these global bodies, particularly the Human Rights Council, as well as the Third Committee of the General Assembly. And as such, their voices have to be brought out through the mechanisms that the system has created. So we think that with the revisitation or with revisiting the issue, there will be a possibility of bringing back this question high on the radar, because at the moment it's not on the radar, mainly because of political interests, especially among the superpowers. So we need to bring it back on board. We need to constantly urge the powers that be, that the communities that deserve this right, and they have justified themselves to achieve that particular right, self-determination. And until we build enough political pressure, especially among the superpowers, it would be very difficult for some of these communities to realize this right. Yes, for some, like Palestine, Sri Lanka, and of course, Western Sahara, this is a matter that has been discussed at the highest level, but still, you do not find a lot of political interest in this issue at the global level. So we need to constantly bring up the pressure and be able to make the powers that be constantly mindful that their communities urging for self-governance, self-existence, and they deserve to have that. And that is my case. So authoring another report after my predecessor, Alfred Desayas, would be an opportunity to create the necessary reminder that indeed this issue cannot be forgotten. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Livingstone, for your intervention. And I just want to underline some words that you have said: never give up. That's the message of Dr. Livingstone today. So thank you for being with us in our fight. Yes, we will never forgive also, and never give up. We cannot forgive the governments who are oppressing us and doing continuing ongoing genocide. And no, we will never give up, and we are still fighting for our rights within this system of UNHRC, who is also sometimes failing to recognize our will and our struggles. So thank you for being such a support inside this system, and enabling us to empower our youngsters also who are now taking the line. So now there were two questions to Father Jumbam. Can you please answer to his the question of our friend Julius ND, please?
Before I answer the two questions, I like to in our own way, representing the Southern Cameroons, thank Mr. Livingstone for his very consoling words. His a very ennobling presence here, distinguished presence, which he is with so much knowledge about what is happening and what the UNO is. He has encouraged us to keep on the struggle. Thank you very much for that encouragement. We need it so much because there is a silence actually about us, about our suffering people, which silence actually creates more problems to us. Going now to the two questions which were asked. The very first one, Julius Nde, I thank you for your question. And you asked a question about the colonial powers that are in play. I mean, America, France, UK, about the Southern Cameroons. Which it's because all of us seem to have very common problems and the same issues which the Omeima from Western Sahara and Summer Ahmed from the representative of the Palestine actually already presented. For the Southern Cameroons, we have received so much encouragement from the United States of America. We must actually acknowledge their bravery actually from the former ambassador of America, Ballerine, to the present new one, and to Tibor Naj, who actually has been very vocal these days. We are grateful to them. We are grateful to them, and we expect so much from them. Yeah, because the experience we are witnessing is the experience they witnessed. Their country is a country that is an offshoot from what is normally called rebellion against difficult situations which colonialism brings. And they fought hard, the Washingtons, the Jeffersons, and the Benjamin Franklins, who got their independence, the bloody war, which they got their independence as self-determination. That was the result. So we thank America, but we expect so much from America because they are the leading country in the world. And their voice about these things, about the sufferings of people, is very encouraging and is very, very important. The UK, which actually is one of the root problems of the problem of the Southern Cameroons, has maintained a certain silence. One poet once said that not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Because silence is taking a moral position, a decision which carries moral implications. We are suffering today because of the certain situations that were not handled in the early 1960s and the late 1950s, which the resolution of the independence of the Southern Cameroons actually came up, which were not resolved. French Cameroon had independence. We had ours, but things were not finished up to give us full independence. So the Holocaust, the genocide that is going on now, the United Kingdom is responsible, has a responsibility in it. I'm making it open, let them know, because not just as a priest and as a human being, our people are dying and they have been quiet. They have made statements in the parliament, but the statements in parliament which remain in parliament don't count anywhere. The United Kingdom has a certain power in the world, which if they act, they will help some of us who are going through. We are called not just the Southern Cameroons, the British Southern Cameroons. So Britain has something to do with that particular part of the world. Then over to France, which it's a clandestine contributor to the trouble we have today. Like we have heard from Omeima about Western Sahara, where they were talking about some that the veto powers are actually one of the contributors to this trouble. The problem of the suppression, the oppression of the peoples, the godforsaken peoples of the world. And I will speak about this speaking historically. If we go back to...
You're running out of time, so if we can conclude.
All right, so that is, the question was about those particular names, America, France, and UK. So I think I have given the briefings about what is happening in the southern Cameroons. We expect them, so much cooperation from them to help the southern Cameroons get out of this mess and have our full independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. And the next question was directed to Omeima.
Yeah.
At the same time, I want to read you out also another question I have in the written form here in the conversation box. The question to Omeima is coming from Emmanuel Scop, Southern Cameroons. He says, thanks for sharing your experience with us, Omeima. My question is, in the Southern Cameroons War of Independence, there is a lot of division within the ranks of the liberation groups. Liberation groups fight against each other instead of fighting with the colonizer. Was this experience in your liberation war? If you had such divisions, how did you manage them? And I'm also taking the same opportunity to address you the same question than Emmanuel, because Tamils are facing the same problem. So you are answer.
Yeah, actually, since the beginning of our fight for freedom, we have realized that if we want to exist, we have to exist as peoples, as one people, to really show us to the world as one people. And I'm sorry, Ghada, I will have to make small example about Palestinians. Palestinians has a very strong case, but unfortunately the division has put them so down that they have lost some kind of this. In our case, we don't have this problem. Since the beginning, we have united around our leadership, the movement of freedom of Western Sahara. And we decide that there will be no other option than this until independence. And when we get independence, anyone can create the government or whatever, or the group they want to create. But for now, we are only one people, one movement, and we have one speaker in our name, and it's the one we have choose. So please, people, unite, because your enemy wants you to divide, and you don't want this. You want to be strong enough to fight against your enemy and to have your independence. If you are divided, you are not going to gain anything.
Thank you, Omeima, for these words. The next question is from Baban Eliassi.
Yes. Hello? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Baban. I am a Kurd from Iran. The Kurds in Iran are about 12 million, according to Amnesty International. Since at least 4 decades, the Kurds are struggling to gain a kind of cultural and political rights, but all the demands of the Kurds have been met with violence and oppression. For example, more than half of the executions in Iran are from Kurdish origin. For example, and even in the Iranian constitution, there is laws that doesn't permit any Kurd to be a candidate for the president in Iran. This is one example. My question is that to Mr. Livingstone, when there is no peaceful solution, and for example, the leader of Kurdish political party, he was in negotiation in Austria. He was assassinated by the Iranian so-called diplomats. What I want to say here, there is no peaceful solutions. And the struggle also continues. What are the solutions? What we can do? Is it justified self-determination for the Kurds? For example, the Kurds are asking for internal self-determination, like a kind of federalism or a kind of autonomy. But where there is no hope, and the answer is always violence and oppression, what we can do as a minority in Iran. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Baban, for your question. So, Mr. Livingstone, can you please answer to this question? So, what is the solution when peaceful solution is not possible? Dr. Livingstone, are you still here with us? Oh, he seems to have also, again some problem with the network. Okay. I think his mic is unmute now. Can you hear us? Yes.
Hear me? I hear you, but do you hear me?
We can partially hear you.
Yeah, I think we are experiencing network problems.
Now it seems better.
Hello?
Now we can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. Within the United Nations, we advocate for peaceful solutions. And the search for peaceful solutions should never abort. We don't advocate for conflict. We don't advocate for war. So what is important is to constantly engage the powers that be to ensure that action is taken in the interest of upholding the rights of citizens. Of course, we no longer even accept unilateral coercive measures unless these are adopted within the United Nations. So unless there are multilateral coercive measures, unilateral coercive measures are no longer acceptable. So we have to constantly engage, bring the states to book. Of course, we need to name and shame some of these countries and constantly appeal to the superpowers that they have a responsibility to maintain peace and security, and that some of these actions actually threaten international peace and security. So that is only format. I would advocate for any institution, and of course a constant effort to share my name those countries at the same time. We constantly motivate ourselves as
Thank you, Dr. Livingstone. We can hardly hear you now, but I don't know if he will come back, but it seems that we have lost his connection again. So thank you for this question and this answer. And now we move on to our next question, which is coming from Niru. Niru, can you ask the question? So can you please enable Niru to activate her mic? Okay, it seems there's a problem here too. So we move on to okay.
Yeah, I can now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. So your question.
Yeah, thank you for the chance. And my question is for Mr. Radhakrishnan. Mr. Radhakrishnan, thank you for your intervention. As Tamil are victim of structural genocide, we try to make awareness across the world but it is important to have that Tamil Nadu State Assembly take initiative to have a committee in Parliament on the way that they can organize a monthly hearing and also make awareness among other state assembly in India too, and also around the world. It's vital for the right to memory of the Ulam Tamil genocide. If possible to Radhakrishnan to help us to have a committee in India, Tamil Nadu State Assembly as we have in France and UK. Is that possible to help us?
Thank you, Niru, for your question. So it was addressed to Mr. Radhakrishnan from Tamil Nadu, India. Is he still with us? Can we have his answer, please? So I'm trying to find his name among the participants, and so it seems he is not.
I think he's no more in connection.
Okay, so Niru, we will try to find, we'll try to answer to your question, sending here to his mail through Bosco, if possible, and we will give you your answer. But it's a good question if Tamil Nadu can participate in our fight, forming a committee in India. That's a very good question. Thank you for that, and we'll see what will be his answers in the next days. And our next question is coming from iPhone Lisa. iPhone Lisa, can you unmute yourself and ask a question, please?
Hello, my name is Angélique from France. Tamil born in France, and I know what's going on in Thamizhnaadu because my parents teach me, but after what I hear on this meeting, I think it's important to people from southern Cameroon, South Yemen, Palestine, Western Sahara, and others. It's important to educate youth and those issues. So I want to know what or steps you have done for sensibilize youth. Thank you.
So the question was not directed to anyone, but I think maybe Gerald Jumbam or Omeima or Ghada Alrayan, any speakers here can maybe answer to this question of this.
Ghada, please go. Ghada.
Sorry, Omeima?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for the question. And I can tell you from my perspective, because I'm also a young Palestinian, so I was raised at home with the Palestinian case. I've been always teach about the Palestinian rights and how to fight for the justice. In Law for Palestine, like from a Law for Palestine perspective, from an NGO perspective, we are still like a young organization, but we have done big steps like in this battle. Recently, we had a conference where we invited interested people in the case and also interested young people to the conference, and where we took like highlights on the Palestinian case and discussed the recent actions and how can the young people like be active in the case and how they can fight in this battle for the rights. So yeah, this is basically what we have done. And I think like for all other nations, it's, as you mentioned, it's very important to start teaching the young people about their rights, about their nation, and how they can take action to like in that regard.
Thank you, Ghada, for the answer, and thank you, Anjali, for this wonderful question, because in making the youngsters taking part in our fight is very essential, is vital. So it's very good that you also take initiative for this kind of making awareness among the youngsters. So in that matter, I would like to inform you also, we are doing regular sessions for teaching the system of the UN, and how we can fight within the framework. So these classes are done by Bosco Maredas, who is here, who is the who is a representative of Global Tamil Movement. So we can share you the date and the time of the events in the groups. I'm sure you are in the WhatsApp groups. I'm sure you are in. So we don't feel free to initiate to make some publicity inside your community to let people, youngsters, be educated on this matter. The next question is from Kulandai. I think it's our father, Kulandai Sami from Thamizhnaadu. Hello, Father.
Thank you, Nisha. This question is actually so Livingstone, but it's not there, I think. But I can ask Father Gerald and Ghada Alrayan. So two of them can answer this particular question. See, those countries who really fought for the right to self-determination, now they deny the right to self-determination to the other countries. Now I am asking whether the UNO, the system, the mechanism, as Omeima used to say this, the UNO really deceive us. So the UNO system now is under the control of the first world countries who operate with a market economy policy. So therefore, they are reluctant to act independently. This UNO mechanism act independently without the control of the first world countries like Israel or even America or China, something. So those countries really control UNO to act independently. That means they are not able to act independently and respond to the needs and the demands of the such countries. They really fight for right to self-determination. What's your perception? What is wrong with the system or even the countries who really deny this right to self-determination? Is there any hidden agenda within the countries or even inside the UNO? Just I want to know the real functions or the modality of functioning UNO. Thank you.
So who can answer to this question? So Dr. Father Jumbam.
Gerard, go ahead, Gerard.
Dr. Gerald Jumbam, we can have you answer and then Ghada. Yes. Okay.
I would like to begin by saying that it's a very, very important question, because it looks like the face of the UNO of the 1960s and the 1970s is not what it is. The UNO of today is not what was in the 1960s and 1970s. I'll give an example of the experience of the Southern Cameroons. The plebiscite that we had and the results came out on the 11th of February 1961 about the Southern Cameroons was conducted by the UNO, the United Nations Organization, a plebiscite for the Southern Cameroons. But it looks like the United Nations of today, I don't know whether I don't know how I can say it, is not concerned about such things, such referendums for the people who are suffering in these areas. So I should rightly say that maybe their priorities today are different, and which I'm saying that when we allow things to go that way, the trouble of the First World War, the problem that brought up the Second World War, may come over today through these little states. Through these little states. I give an example. For example, there is Ukraine today, a little country, a small country. A problem in Ukraine that may cause a terrible problem in the world today. It is these little places, these small places that cause trouble in the world. We are not asking for the independence of the Southern Cameroons because we're just celebrating it. We are asking it because also we want peace and prosperity in the world. Because when our people are happy, when our people are liberated, Africa is liberated. The world is liberated. If you talk to any Southern Cameroonian, anybody from the British Southern Cameroons today, it is all bitterness, anger, and problems. Such a person is not happy. Such a person who is living under such a yoke, he will cause trouble. So the more the UNO goes back to the UNO of the 1960s and the 1970s, and looks into the problem of self-determination, sung by Roosevelt and Churchill. Until we go back to the UN of the 60s and the 70s, we are leading the world into trouble. Thank you very much.
Can we have also Ghada Alrayan for your short answer, please? Given the time.
Like from my point of view, I think there is a problem in the UN mechanism itself, because there is like a difference between giving awareness on the struggles of the nations, and there is also like a difference of their political will. And if this will, with the awareness together and with all these resolutions and all decisions are not linked together, like no actions will be taken, there is no use of these resolutions.
Thank you, Ghada. And I think Omeima also has a reaction.
I totally agree with my colleagues Gerard and Ghada. And the other question, very important to know, that these countries who are ruling the world today and who are really somehow our life, and they have the veto in their hands and they can destroy anything, they don't have any kind of clue or any kind of friends. They just have interests. So my dear friend Gerald, if you see UK or USA there, they are not interested in the people of Cameroon. They are interested in what they can get from Cameroon and how they can use you to pressure UK or to make other questions. So we have to be careful as people and take our struggles in hand. And remember, the will of the people is irreversible. If we want, we can. No one can destroy us. No one can take this power from us. But if they divide us, we are going to be weaker. Just remember what France has done in Africa. They have killed 25 leaders, the best of the Africa. It has been killed by France because France wants to keep a hand in the resources. And right now, 15 countries of Africa, 15 countries of Africa are not free anyway. I'm sorry, Cameroon also is one of them. They, all the French speakers are not free because they don't have the freedom in their resources, in the political decisions, nothing, because France is still the one who is leading and obliging their puppet leaders to continue their policies on the ground. So people of everywhere, Palestine, Western Sahara, Cameroon, South, Tamil, unite. And this is the strong answer you can give to your enemy and to one who don't want you to be a nation.
Thank you for the answers, all of you. And our next question is from Anjali Ram. Anjali, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My question is to Livingstone. Thank you for speaking to us today. We find your intervention really valuable and we appreciate your dedication. We seek your support to bring Tamil cause at Human Rights Council 3rd and 4th Committee of General Assembly. And also, can you please ask those committees to organize a hearing with Tamils and other nations who are seeking for their rights to self-determination? Thank you.
Thank you, Anjali, for this wonderful question, which is very technical. Let's see if Dr. Sewanyana is here. Livingstone Sewanyana, are you there with us? The question was about committee, fourth committee, and if you can intervene in that. Dr. Livingstone, are you there? Yes, we can. Hello. Dr. Livingstone, yes.
Hello.
Yeah, we can.
I think I have problems today. Hello, I have network. I respond in writing. I respond in email. Let all the questions. I'm very happy to provide a written response.
Thank you, Dr. Livingstone. So as his connection is not very clear, he is willing to answer to this question in a written form. So as soon as I get the written answer of Dr. Livingstone in the conversation box. I shall read it later. Thank you, Dr. And now we can move on to our, there was the last question. I mean, okay, Edixon was raising his hand. I see that he doesn't have, yeah, okay. Edixon, so your question, please.
Hello.
Ask a question, making sure to unmute other devices if you are logged in two devices. And then we can have our last question from Mr. Jagan. After Edixon, we will have Jagan for his.
Hello.
Yes, Edixon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Yeah. Hello. Hi. I will. I have a question about to Omeima. Thank you for your intervention. We Tamil who are undergoing genocide still, we have to follow your perseverance fighting inside the existing system like the UN. What is your advice for Tamil people who do not believe in the UNHCR but want to move directly to UN General Assembly or Security Council in New York? Thank you.
My advice to the Tamil people and to everyone, you have to use all the questions you can use for your fight to make your voice to be heard. If you need to go to the moon, go to the moon to do it. So I'm sure that I am really impressed how you Tamils are organized. You are so organized that I'm sure that there will be Tamils in New York that can defend your cause in New York in General Assembly. And there will be Tamils like here, my colleagues, Nisha and Bosco in Geneva, that they continue also to fight. And they are doing an excellent job. And I really want to congratulate them how they have been able to unite all the voices to defend their right. This is an excellent work. Continue, never give up, because your enemy wants you to get tired and don't ask. If you don't ask, you don't exist. If you don't knock the doors, you don't exist. So continue to write, continue to denounce, continue to do everything in every place to denounce what's happening in Tamil and other countries.
Thank you, Omeima, for this recognition of our work. Because sometimes we also tend to we want to forgive, or give up our efforts because sometimes we are tired. But as you say, we have to be strong because we don't want our enemies to win. That's the case. So thank you for this recognition from your part. And then we can take just two more questions. The next one from Jagan, and then the last one from Salah Al-Batati. Jagan, yes, please, with your question. You can now unmute and ask a question. Yes.
Okay. Okay, I can speak. Okay, good evening,
Yes, you can.
Lisa and everybody. Lisa, small request. I don't know English, only Tamil. Please translate for you.
Yes, we will translate.
நான் சொல்றது நிஷா, நீங்க தமிழ்ல நீங்க டிரான்ஸ்லேட் பண்றீங்களா இங்கிலீஷ்ல?
ஆமா, நீங்க தமிழ்ல சொல்லுங்க, ஷார்ட்டா சொல்லுங்க.
தமிழ் ஈழ மக்களுக்கு மட்டுமில்ல, ஐநாவின் பங்களிப்பு என்பது ஒட்டுமொத்த ஒடுக்கப்பட்ட மக்களுக்குமே இல்லை. உலகத்தில் எங்கேயும் ஒடுக்கப்பட்ட மக்களுக்கு ஐநாவோட பங்களிப்பு என்றது ரொம்ப 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 குறைவாத்தான் இருக்குது.
He's saying that concerning the UN's participation in the fight for the people who are struggling for self-determination, not only for the Tamils but also for the other people who are struggling. The UN is failing to recognize them, their demand of self-determination.
ஐநாவின் சேவைகள் என்பது வளர்ந்த நாடுகள் அவங்களுக்கு மட்டும்தானே இருக்க, ஒடுக்கப்பட்ட மக்களுக்கு இல்ல. இது நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி ஜெர்மன், ஆப்பிரிக்காவில் உள்ள நாடுகள், சகாரா அந்த மாதிரி கடைசியில் தமிழீழ மக்கள் முழுமையாவே பாதிக்கப்பட்டாங்கன்னா, நீங்க இந்தியாவுல வந்து பார்த்தா நிறைய மனித உரிமை மீறல்கள் அப்பட்டமா நடந்துகிட்டு இருக்குது. அங்க ஒடுக்கப்பட்ட மக்கள் ரொம்ப அந்த கூவத்துல இந்த சேரிகள்ல வாழ்ற மக்கள் எல்லாம் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப இது பண்றாங்க. இதெல்லாம் ஐநாவோட கண்ணுக்கு தெரியவே தெரியறது இல்லை. ஐநாவோட கண்ணுக்கு தெரியறதெல்லாம் மேல்தட்டு விஷயங்கள் மட்டும்தான். அதனால சாரி நிஷா,
சொல்லுங்க உங்களுக்கு கேள்விய கொஞ்சம் சுருக்கம் யாருக்கு அந்த கேள்வின்னு சொல்லுங்க.
ஐநாவோட கண்ணுக்கு தெரியறதெல்லாம் மேற்கத்திய நாடுகள்ல எல்லாம் மேல் தட்டு மக்களோட பிரச்சனைகள் அந்த ஒரு குறிப்பா பார்க்கிறது. அடிப்படை ஒடுக்கப்பட்ட மக்கள்கிட்ட எந்த பிரச்சனையுமே ஐநாவுக்கு தெரியும். குறிப்பாக ஈழத்தமிழர் மேல ஐநா வந்து எந்த கரிசனையும் காட்டல. 2009க்கு முன்னையும் சரி, 2009க்கு பின்னையும் சரி. தேங்க்யூ.
And he adds that concerning UN, we don't feel that UN is sensibilized by the people, by the problem that peoples are suffering from. For example, we have the feeling that the United Nations just exist for the countries who are holding power. But concerning people like Western Sahrawis or Southern Cameroon or even Tamils from Ireland, we don't feel that they are really, the United Nations are really listening to our problems, and even if they want to help us to find solution. So especially when you come to India, you will see such a big amount of violation of human rights. So and concerning the Tamils from Ireland in Sri Lanka, we don't see any advancement or any developments even before 2009 and even after 2009. So his remarks was not a question, it was just a remark. So this is he is remarking that the failures of the UN system. So is anyone willing to react for his reaction?
Just tell him that we agree that the UN, it's a failed system. I'm sorry, Livingstone, to hear that. They need to renovate a lot of things, but most importantly, they need to respect their decisions and to respect what is written, because it's the international law. If we don't protect it, we are all going to die. It will be a mess. So the state has a responsibility to keep the order, and to keep the order, they need to really to stick to what is written in the resolutions and written to the charter, that everyone has a right, everyone must not be left behind. All the people, doesn't matter their race, their sex, their religion. So all these questions, they should be taken into consideration. Please, Father, go ahead.
உமைமா உங்களுக்கு என்ன சொல்றாங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னா, உங்களுக்கு சொல்றாங்க நீங்க சொல்றது முற்றிலும் உண்மை, அதுல உங்களுக்கு உடன்பாடு இருக்கிறது. நீங்க சொல்றது வந்து யுஎன்னுடைய ஃபெயிலியர்ஸ் சொல்றீங்க, அவங்க விட்ட பிள்ளைகளை சொல்றீங்க, அது முற்றிலும் உண்மையான விடயங்கள் தான். இருந்தாலும் அவங்களோட யுஎன் இருக்கிற சார்ட்டர், அந்த ரூல்ஸ் அண்ட் ரெகுலேஷனை ஃபாலோ பண்ணணும். அவங்களுக்கு ஒவ்வொரு வேர்டும், அது இருக்க ஒவ்வொரு வேர்டுமே சொற்களையுமே வந்து நம்ம ஃபாலோ பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்றாங்க. இப்போ ஜெனரல் ஜும்பன் அவங்க வந்து பேசுறதுக்கு இருக்காங்க. எஸ் ஃபாதர், we can hear your reaction too.
Okay, just to add my voice to Omeima, what she has been saying, that the UNO has much to do, actually much to do. But as Omeima said sometimes that, because when we talk about self-determination is a word which means it all depends on you. It all depends on you. And that is what the young people of the southern Cameroons have discovered. And they are so serious about their cause now. Our forefathers, I mean, in the 80s and the 90s, they so much spoke about the UNO and thought the UNO would do everything and all that, which the UNO has a very important role to play. But the young people of today, they are working on what is called self-determination. They have decided that they are going to have their independence, the southern Cameroons. And whether they like it or not, it is better for them to die than to live, being under oppressors, being under tyrants. That is what they have decided. And I think that is what is called independence. Because independence given in a platter of gold is not even independence. You have to decide. And when you decide, you keep on. No surrender, no retreat, no surrender. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Gerald Jumbam, for your intervention, and thank you, Jagan, for your question also. Can we have Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, because I can see that his line is back. So can you please give us a signal that you are still with us?
Hello, hello, moderator.
Yes, Dr. Livingstone, we can hear you.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we do hear you.
Yes, I've been listening to all the questions and submissions. I definitely appreciate them. They are very important. As some of the presenters have rightly observed, we can never give up. You have a right to assert yourself. You have a right to ensure that the world community listens to your demands. And on our part, we shall do our best. It is through the UN system, it's a bureaucratic one, ineffective, riddled with ideological division, and of course, on many occasions, in defense of the interests of the superpowers. And that's our job as independent experts and special rapporteurs. It's our role to bring out the voices of the voiceless. My next report is actually going to be looking at how to reform the UN. I'm looking at the question of representation at the global level in all the different institutions. And certainly, for reforms, if your process has been hard, to read my report to the General Assembly as well as the Human Rights Council. That's supposed to be had within the UN. And I called on the UN to establish mechanisms for representation of people and their voices, including the establishment of a global parliamentary assembly. I am advocating for as many reforms as possible within the UN. But of course, when I presented my report, some of the superpowers reacted adversely. Some say that I exceeded my mandate to call for the reform of the UN Security Council. In one of my proposals that the reform, in order to bring that the concerns of the ordinary people are known and brought forward. So I did the concern of presenters and the effect that until the UN is also reformed, it may be difficult sometimes to meet that demand. The UN was created for the aim of ensuring multilateral cooperation, ensuring peace and security, and the right self-determination definitely goes towards that end. So we shall not tire, we shall not give up, we shall continue to make this. And of course, I urge you continue to remain committed on this matter as we do our best within our mandates to bring up your voices and ensure that the United Nations and its mechanisms actually respond to these issues. These are very, very important issues. They are our concerns, your concerns, our concerns, your voices, our voices, and we don't want to see anyone left behind. Neither should those people oppressed. Those justice, they deserve to live in a world where their voices matter, where they are not displaced, where they feel that they belong. And exactly that I intend to on international financing and pricing. Again, it was one of those issues that I brought up. It was highly contested because I also believe that in those countries,
Doctor, we don't hear you very well.
You don't hear me? Now, because I can't do much. I think it's a network problem today.
Yes.
But let me end by saying that I salute you, and I continue to associate myself with your cause, and I still make as much contribution as possible around the whole question of self-determination. And I do hope that we shall build the necessary political pressure for some of your communities to be accorded the respect they deserve in ensuring that they receive and are accorded self-governance. So the right self-determination will continue to be pursued at all levels, and I will continue to impress upon my colleagues, the special rapporteurs, to take further interest and more interest in this issue by visiting some of your countries and continuing to make a case. The people in Yemen, Armenia, the people of Western Sahara, Palestine, the people of Sri Lanka, the Tamils, you are not forgotten. You have an ally in my mandate, and I am convinced that together we shall be able to achieve our goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Livingstone, for your for the words that give us hope for all the people who are fighting like us, like Tamils. So I know that you insist on the necessary political pressure to be given on to these governments who are pressing us, and you also promise us to make reports and to do your best within your mandate time, and that you are also ready to support the colleagues which are dealing with these problems, and you encourage the country visits also to see and to how far people are affected and to report to the United Nations General Assembly. So thank you for your participation to this event also. And we have the last speaker of this event today. I mean, not the speaker, I'm sorry. The last question will be from Saleh Al-Batati. You can ask your question very rapidly, given the time running out now. So Saleh Al-Batati, you can, yes, you can.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So thank you for giving me the chance. I'm just trying to understand more about South Yemen case and wondering if Summer Ahmed can explain further on the current situation of South Yemen in terms of the main obstacles they are facing in South Yemen, the obstacles that stand in their way against granting the people of South Yemen the legal right of self-determination. And the second question is just if Summer Ahmed can tell us more whether the Southern Transitional Council is discussing or having any discussion with the UN on this subject. If just give us a view of what's happening there. Thank you.
Nisha, if I can, I want to also ask to Summer another question. Just if she can just tell us about her role in US, because I think she's a representative of the Southern Cameroon people in US. So I want to know more about her work there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bosco, for your question. So this Bosco's question was addressed to Summer Ahmed, and I think Saleh's two questions were addressed, one to Ghada Alrayan and the other one?
His question was also for Summer Ahmed.
Okay. So maybe Summer Ahmed, you can answer to these questions first. Thank you.
Thank you. The Southern Transitional Council and the Southern Independence Movement is facing the same obstacles as the rest of you. Basically exclusion and marginalization. Even though there has been contact and meetings and negotiations between the UN envoy to Yemen, Mr. Grunberg, and US Security Council members, there is still that wall, there is still that huge obstacle and exclusion. The Southern Transitional Council is demanding representation and inclusion in any peace negotiations that will be discussed by the UN regarding Yemen and ending the war in Yemen. So it's the same obstacle that many of the presenters today are enduring, and it's exclusion. And hopefully we could all work together and advocate for all of us, for the UN inclusion, for better inclusion, for all our voices to be heard. Another obstacle in the South is the Yemeni government. The Yemeni government that continues to implement unity by force and continues to occupy southern territory by military force, and refuses to grant the southern people a self-determination vote.
Thank you, Summer, for your answer. And I announce that that would be the last question, but I can see our old friend Manivan, who joined us very late, but he's here. And thank you, Manivan, for joining us. So we will finish this event with your question. Can you please be short in your question and to tell us also to whom you are addressing to?
Yeah, I like to ask the question to Livingstone. The Tamils have already had a referendum in 1977. Is there any way that referendum can be recognized, because that is at that time is the maximum amount of people was present in the island of Ceylon. The Tamils was present. After that, the government makes sure that they did the genocide and tried to move the people out of the country, because they called for a separate state that is their own self-determination. So is there any way of recognizing that self-determination call in 1977, which they couldn't, after that, they didn't have any opportunity to express those or work towards it? That is my question.
Thank you, Mr. Manivaran, for your question, which is directed to
Okay,
Livingstone, are you still with us? The question was about the Okay, he seems to have problems. Dr. Livingstone, can you hear us? Okay, see, he seems to have some connection problem. So this question was addressed to Dr. Livingstone Sewanyana, who is our keynote speaker of this event, and the question was about referendum and if there is any way to implement the referendum that were asked by the Tamils, that are being asked by the Tamils for such a long time, and that is unfortunately, the state of the other, our friends also here, the Western Sahrawis, or be it the Southern Yemenis or our Kurds, we all are sailing the same boat, asking for a referendum for self-determination. But it was very clear that the system of the United Nations is very limited, and even people who are working within the system, like Dr. Livingstone said, are also struggling as much as we are struggling also to find solution. They are also encouraging us to fight and never give up. I underline also and repeatedly these words from Livingstone Sewanyana, who said never give up, and we have to put necessary political pressure on the governments who are there, and trying to make our voice to lessen. So we really need to unite ourselves, as Omeima told us just before very beautifully. We need to be united together and to fight together and to find ways in this limited space of this international order, which is one of the international order, which is the United Nations system. So friends, I think it's time now to wrap up, and we from the part of Global Tamil Movement in association with Bar des Centres Franco-Culturel in France, we are pleased to have invited to you and to have your participation in this event. Let me just remind you that we organize this sort of events through Zoom. We have to tell you that during this pandemic situation, we find that it was a good solution also to make people unite together with this system. But we really look forward to see all of you, Omeima, Ghada, maybe why not Summer, if you can come to us also to visit Geneva, in which the fight is still going on. And I also just want to remind you that the 49th session of the Human Rights Council is starting very soon, on the 28th, I think, and it's going on. It's going to be on the agenda until the last week of March. So we are waiting for the report of Michelle Bachelet on Sri Lanka on the 3rd of March, and I can also assure you that we are also waiting, finger crossed, to see if there is any improvement on the part of the UN dealing the problem of the Iran Tamils, and also our brothers and sisters who are fighting with us like you. Thank you very much for your presence, and let me just say that you are with us and we are with you. Thank you for your presence, and thank you again and again. See you. Bye. Vanakkam.
Yeah. Bye.